The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Toll free at 1-877-528-8255. That's toll free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My email address is xzone@talkstarradio.com. On MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com. And our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and www.xzonetv.com. Question for you, Exo Nation. Did the Irish discover America 1,000 years before Columbus? Well, in elementary school, we learned that Christopher Columbus was the first European to discover America in 1492. Remember that? Well, as we grew older, we learned of Leif Erikson and the Vikings visiting Greenland around 1000 AD. Now there's growing evidence that an Irish saint was the first European to set foot in the New World, a millennium before Christopher Columbus. Around 530 AD, an Irish monk named Saint Brendan set sail on a legendary voyage in search of the mysterious promised land of the saints. Convinced he'd found it, he returned to Ireland to tell his tale. Modern academia now believes that Saint Brendan actually discovered America 1,000 years before Columbus. Now, our special guest this hour, Doug Elwell, is going to tell us the story of St. Brendan, as well as many others about ancient, mysterious Ireland. Doug Elwell is a passionate researcher and has written articles on religion, history, mythology, and travel, and publishes Mysterious World, an online travel journal of history, travel, and ancient mysteries. Mysterious World, Ireland is the first volume in their new series of travel guides, and we're talking about Ireland this hour here on the X-Zone. And Doug Elwell, always great having you here with us on the X-Zone. How are things with you, and what's new with Mysterious Ireland?
Great to hear from you again, Rob. Things are going great. Actually, I had a very good year. During December, we had a good sales period for Mysterious World Ireland, probably the best since we published. And there's always a perennial interest in Ireland and everything Irish. Even now, during these kind of economic dark times, people kind of look at it as a great little escape to times, maybe simpler times, happier times. I remember when I first wrote the book, it was a fantastic experience. And looking back on it and the book and rereading through things, it's really been fascinating, the Irish history and culture, how rich and wonderful it was.
Why the Irish? For example, everybody loves to be Irish on St. Patrick's Day. They drink green beer. They wear green with pride. My mother used to make green mashed potatoes. And, we used to wear a green tie to shirt to school. We used to wear something green all the time, and we'd stand there and freeze our little selves watching the St. Patrick's Day parade in downtown Montreal. Mm-hmm. What is the fascination with the Irish?
I think it has to do with a kind of a Celtic ethos of freedom and independence and a kind of a desire to be joyful. Something about the Irish is they're the last bastion of Celtic thought and life ways in the West. The Celts used to dominate the entire continent of Europe, but they were driven farther and farther west until they made their last stand in Ireland and Scotland. And the old Celtic life ways, I think, are starting to make a comeback as people are realizing, with all this technology.
Doug, we've got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Exo Nation, don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
Doug Elwell is our special guest this hour. We're talking about Mysterious World Ireland. And Doug, what are some of the most misunderstood historical points about Ireland?
I would say, like you mentioned briefly before, the fact that St. Brendan probably discovered America close to at least 800 years before
Christopher
or Columbus, yeah. And there's all kinds of, actually quite a bit about Ireland that is misunderstood. The concept of the shamrock and that sort of thing, the green beer. They really weren't into St. Patrick's Day festivals until the Americans, for example, started celebrating it themselves. The first St. Patrick's Day parade was actually held in New York, I think 1764 or thereabouts, by some Irish policemen who wanted to celebrate their culture. And then it took off in the United States, and it didn't really pick up in Ireland until about 10 years ago. And now it's a huge cultural phenomenon over there, and it's also a very big tourist attraction as well.
How about St. Patrick? Everybody associates St. Patrick with Ireland, and very few people actually know the story about St. Brendan.
St. Patrick?
Yeah.
The St. Patrick came from Wales, from Cumbria, which is in southwestern England or western England. He was originally he was also a Celt. He was but a different type of Celt. The Welsh Celts are very similar. So when he was actually taken by a raiding party of pirates sent by King Neil of the Nine Hostages of Ireland, who frequently raided the English coast to take slaves and sell them. And he ended up as a slave to a druid named Milku in the Dalriada, which is in Ulster in Northern Ireland right now, what is now Northern Ireland. But after 6 years, he managed to escape, but an angel came and told him to escape and return to his home. And after that, he dedicated his life to God and began to study to become a bishop. He actually studied in France and the Abbey of Laurent under Saint Germain for several years, until he was called by an angel again in a dream, said, "You should return to Ireland and save the people there and minister on my behalf." So he was actually, coincidentally, or perhaps actually, Pope Celestine actually needed somebody to go to Ireland because the previous Bishop Palladius had been driven from the island by the fierce Irish warriors who dominated the land there. So at the same time, Patrick had the visions of Irish children calling out to bring the word of God to them. Pope Celestine contacted him shortly thereafter and said, "I need you to be my bishop in Ireland," and that's how the story began.
Now, what about St. Patrick ridding Ireland of snakes?
Well, Ireland never actually had any snakes. Geologically speaking, it's been separate for such a long time. The snakes never actually managed to make it there. But the actual story of Patrick ridding the island of snakes had to do with his fight against Druidism. The symbol of the Druids was the snake, and they had carved snakes on their staves, and so snakes really became kind of snakes throughout history of religion have always been a symbol of natural energy, and the Druids drew upon natural energy and kind of worshipped idols. And when Patrick came in conflict with them, his driving Druidism out by preaching and evangelizing, not by causing harm, he symbolically, quote-unquote, drove the snakes from Ireland. And also it has to do with the kind of the fact that there are actually no snakes in Ireland. So the myth or the story and the legend kind of congealed together and created a story about Patrick driving all the snakes from Ireland.
What can people read about in your Mysterious World travel guides?
Well, basically we cover as much as you can possibly pack into one volume. Mysterious World Ireland was designed to be a comprehensive overview of everything about Ireland from the very, very earliest history to modern times. The first half of the book covers the mystery, the mythological and prehistoric period of Ireland, where all the ancient battles and the mythologies were derived. And then you have the historical period, where we talk about the coming of Christianity and the historical period thereafter, because there was no written history before the Christians came. Christians brought with them books and the very concept of written history. So that with the coming to Christianity came the coming of historical writings. So there was a separate period in Irish history. And then we have an entire section devoted to traveling throughout Ireland, which we call The Journey, which is the majority of the book. And where our main author, Ian Middleton, he actually traveled throughout the entire island, spent several months going pretty much every mysterious place you could go to, documenting everything. And has a very fascinating travelogue to go with it. It's very readable.
Now, as far as the archaeological aspects of Ireland, what do you cover in the travel guide?
We actually have a listing of the different types of archaeological artifacts with definitions like dolmens and all kinds of stone circles and what a fairy tree is and why it's important and that sort of thing. There's standing stones, the megaliths, everything from a simple stone ring all the way up to major monuments such as Newgrange, which is a gigantic stone structure that possibly predates the pyramids.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very old, and it actually aligns with the sunrise on the I think it's the winter solstice. And there's another nearby monument called Dowth in the same region, which actually is lined up with the sunset on the winter solstice. So everything in the Celtic and Irish mythology and their religion was based on the cycles of the sun and the moon and the natural world. That's what they were all about.
Now, what are some of the other mysteries that you cover in Mysterious World Ireland?
Well, there's so much, it's hard to figure out where to begin. We have a section on creatures, great and small. We have we talk about ghosts, fairies, giants, sea monsters, pretty much everything you can think of.
What about leprechauns? Everybody talks about leprechauns.
Leprechauns are actually one of the most popular subjects because the fairy mythology is a very powerful undercurrent in Celtic thought and Irish thought particularly. The leprechauns are actually the offspring of a human male and a fairy female, so they're a little bit bigger than typical. And don't ask me how they did it. It's a family show, but the offspring were sometimes male, and sometimes the males were unattractive, humanish instead of fairyish, fairies were always beautiful. So if they were even slightly unattractive, they were banished from the fairy underworld, and they forced to live in the above ground regions. where they kind of in between the world of the humans and the worlds of the fairies, and as such, they were kind of outcasts and vagrants. And they ended up being sullen little tricksters who ended up stealing a lot of things like gold, and, magical items, and all kinds of things that they stashed away in their little their warren or wherever they happened to hide. Sometimes they could be nice, other times they could be cruel and capricious. But they were always one of the most popular because they were kind of a trickster character in Irish mythology, and tricksters are always the most interesting.
Now, people go to Ireland and they also kiss the Blarney Stone.
In County Cork and Blarney Castle, there's an ancient stone of unknown origins, which is believed to have been possibly the Stone of Scone, or the Stone of Destiny, or some people even think it hails back to biblical times. But the tradition is to kiss the stone, and it would make you eloquent. And that story came from the story of how Queen Elizabeth, who wanted her general to conquer the region around Blarney and the castle, was always given a very plausible excuse by King Cormac who owned the castle. He'd always come with a very eloquent and long-winded reason why he shouldn't attack just that day. And the general would take that reason back to Elizabeth, and this would happen over and over again, and the stories would get more and more elaborate to the point where when you have a very good excuse for getting out of trouble, Elizabeth started calling it a load of Blarney. So that's where that term came from. The king of Blarney Castle was such a good speaker that he could even convince a general not to attack.
What about the stories about the screaming banshees?
Banshees are actually not fairy, even though the name banshee literally means woman of the fairies. Ban means woman, and she means fairy. But they're actually a family spirit which follows particular Celtic family lines. They're kind of a sort of guardian angel, except kind of a creepy version.
Oh, I see.
And it's sort of maybe an ancestral spirit of a woman who had died and early on in the line's creation, who was watching over the line. And they've been known to follow people all over the world of Irish and Scottish extraction. And they're known to scream, to wail right before someone is about to die. But of course, the person who doesn't hear it is the one who dies. The saying goes, if you don't hear the banshee wail, you're the one who's going to die. So, and often people, sometimes they'll make themselves visible, sometimes not. Sometimes they can appear as a beautiful woman, but most often as a very unattractive old, haggish type woman dressed in black or gray.
Doug, stand by. You and I have to take our news at the bottom of the hour. Doug Elwell is our special guest, X-Zone Nation, and his website is www.mysteriousworld.com. Doug Elwell and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue talking about Ireland in advance of St. Patrick's Day next, Tuesday. That's right. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
Doug Elwell's my special guest this hour, Exonation. He's got a fascinating site, and if you'd like to know all about Ireland, just go to www.mysteriousworld.com, and there's quite a number of links there. It's a super site, and of course, Doug has an ad in the X Chronicles that'll be coming out this weekend for the month of March. Doug, where does the unicorn come from in Ireland?
The unicorn, I think, is actually more of a French invention. It's a concept that came from France. But there were, like I said before, there were a lot of Celts in France.
Yeah.
In fact, the Gauls are basically a Celtic people. As far as the unicorn goes, it's more of an interesting myth, but it's not specifically Irish per se.
All right, you said they had lake monsters or sea monsters?
Oh, yes, they have all kinds of incredible stories. I was quite impressed by the amount of stories they had, actually, about lake monsters and sea serpents.
Can you share a few of them with us?
Absolutely. The sea monsters actually, they're actually one of the more common mythical creatures to be found all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's, for example, the one called the Muirdris, a lake monster that believes Loch Ruairi in County Down. The Olafeist, which literally means like great, fabulous beast, that it was part of the St. Patrick's story. It's believed that it was so huge that it actually carved out such a huge gouge that one of these gouges later became the Shannon River. And at one time, St. Patrick came in contact with one of these creatures, one of them which was called a Piast, which is probably the origin of the term beast, the Celtic term beast, is Piast. And he actually, this beast actually was attacking a monastery in Glendalough. And St. Patrick, he was eating the monks, and St. Patrick came against him and drove him from the region. When we were doing research, and I realized that Piast is actually very similar in description, and even the name was very similar to a creature called the Piasaw creature that's located off the Mississippi Bluffs of near St. Louis. There's I don't know if you've ever heard of that. We did an article for that in Mysterious World called The Mysterious Piasaw Creature. And it was very, very similar to the Piast of Celtic legend. I wonder if there's some kind of connection, perhaps linked up with Brendan's travels, because he was said to have seen all kinds of fabulous creatures there.
Right.
And when he traveled west, he may have gone as far as America or even up north into up the Mississippi River. But yeah, the Piast was actually one of the most famous legendary creatures. It was basically a creature which had a human-like face, but dragon-like scales and wings, and a very, very long looping tail.
That's interesting, Doug, because it seems in every country's legend there are dragons of some sort. Reptilians.
Yes, it's a common thing. Some people think it may have been when people came up and dug up old prehistoric skeletons of dinosaurs. They developed elaborate mythologies around ancient heroes battling giant dragons. Or maybe there were large serpentine creatures alive for a period of time long after we thought they were extinct. It's not really clear.
Food for thought, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite possible some dinosaur remnants lived well into historical times.
One of our listeners wanted to know if the Irish really invented green beer.
Probably. I think that was actually more of an American invention, once again, which just became popular because everything green has got to be Irish around St. Patrick's. Green and beer, it just goes together.
Yeah, and apparently they dye the river in Chicago green.
Yeah, I actually went there a couple of years ago, and they had one part of the ceremony is they have a speedboat dumping out a vegetable dye, which actually turns the entire Chicago River green for a period of a day. It used to be back in the early days. They got the idea from a plumber who lived, I think it was near the beginning of the 19th century. He used to use green dye to discover leaks that went into the Chicago River by seeing where the dye went when he poured it into the pipes of the buildings. And some local guys from a local union picked up the idea to turn the river green for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And it stuck that way for a long time. They used kind of a non-environmentally friendly oil-based paint, which kept the river green for several days. But they've since switched over to green, if you will, stuff, the organic green that won't pollute the river. But it was a very interesting story, and the same people who did the original dye job still are in charge of that even today, and they actually sell T-shirts on a website. I think they're linked to. We have a link to them on our site, ireland.mysteriousworld.com. You can actually buy a T-shirt from the people who dye the Chicago River green every year.
Doug, as far as the historical cities in Ireland, what are some of the most historic and most visited cities?
Probably the most visited city would be Dublin. After that, Cork. And Kerry, the Ring of Kerry is probably the most popular area. Not one particular city, but the entire ring, which is basically around the Kerry is a county on the southern edge of Ireland. And there's a winding road with a lot of great sights and wonderful natural vistas. The Ring of Kerry is very popular. Ulster is also very popular. The northern areas, northwest. There's so much I lose track of it all. Let's see.
What's the number one industry in Ireland?
Industry probably. Right now, for a while, it was technology. They were doing very well, known as the Celtic Tiger. Mm-hmm. They were doing comparably well with us per capita in the technology sector. Their major export is actually, I think, still wool, because they have a huge cattle industry, and they also make a lot of beef, of course. Beer, naturally, is one of their major exports, even though it doesn't keep very well when you export it. Just the type of the beer they have, it's always best when you drink it in the region it was brewed. Because even traveling a short distance, it tends to lose its flavor for some reason.
Now, wasn't there a lot of problems with their sheep a couple of years ago?
I don't know.
Just trying to think of the illness that swept through the majority of the flocks, and they lost quite a bit of sheep.
If I've been in the UK, that was a problem. With Ireland, they're a little different over there. Things are a little more dispersed and not as mechanized as it is in the UK. So they're more shielded against that sort of disease problems. But they probably were hit by it by some extent. But
people traveling over to Ireland, what can they expect?
They can expect a very clean and well-ordered country. There's been no problems with terrorism in the north for years, and there isn't going to be anytime soon. There was a minor incident recently, but that was just one little deal. I would say Ireland is as or more orderly than the United States. The cities are very safe. The countryside is beautiful, and the people are always very friendly. And you could actually sit down in a bar and have a pint with somebody, and they'll probably talk to you and tell you about their local stories. They're all very proud of their local stories, and every city has its own little story. Because quite a few of them have St. Patrick stories, as you can imagine, or St. Brendan story. Sure. Or in the west, you have the Tuatha De Danann, in the west and the south, stories of the Tuatha De Danann and the wars and their magic and all kinds of wonderful legends that we cover very thoroughly in Mysterious World Ireland.
As far as money is concerned, what is their currency pounds over in Ireland, or is it the euro?
In the north, it's pounds. It's the British area, but in the south, the majority of the country is on the euro.
And the Canadian or let's use the American dollar. What would a person get in euros for an American dollar?
Last time I looked, it was a 1.5 to 1 in favor of the euro. So it's more expensive to go there than it is for an Irish person to come here, for example, because our currency is still weaker. I'd have to check that, though. It's been a while.
People go to Ireland, they have a good time. Are the accommodations very expensive? Is the food expensive?
It's all very moderate. It depends on what you want to do. If you go with the B&Bs, you can get by pretty cheaply. If you go by hotels, it'll be a little more expensive. A lot of people like to do backpacking, so they go to hostels and get a very cheap rate there. Students do that quite often. Just to avoid taking taxis, apparently, because they're very expensive. Probably you'll want to go with a bus tour or some kind of package tour. That's probably the cheapest way to go.
Right.
But
go on.
The cheapest way to go and probably see the most stuff when you do a package tour. If you want to just see, you could just stay in Dublin for a couple of weeks and never see all of it. The first thing I'll do when I finally go there, I've never actually been there, by the way. I was just a publisher and co-author. The main author is named Ian Middleton. He was the guy who did the actual footwork. When I actually do go there, I'd probably go to Dublin and spend a couple of weeks there because they have all the major attractions there. The National Museum with the Book of Kells. They have the number of excellent museums, and also Dublinia, and there's a great section there. Some wonderful restaurants in the downtown there. It's an absolutely fantastic area. Dublin's probably the best place to go if you're not sure where to go first. After that, I would say the Ring of Kerry is also probably the most popular area to go.
Are there a lot of castles that are open to the public, and are any of the castles bed and breakfast where the public can actually spend a night in an Irish castle?
There's a very good castle near Dublin that you probably your listeners might be interested in going to. Let me get the name here. It's basically associated with Bram Stoker and the whole Dracula experience.
Oh, really?
Because Bram Stoker actually he was a Dubliner. He lived in Dublin, and he got a lot of his ideas for his stories from Irish mythology. And I'm not sure about the Dracula per se, but.
And not to mention a few of the Dublin pints, I would imagine.
Yeah, he was very much into that. There's actually a Bram Stoker museum called the Bram Stoker Experience, which was very highly rated. Here it is, Clontarf Castle in North Dublin. Basically, it's associated with King Brian Boru and also with Bram Stoker. It's a very beautiful old castle which has been turned into a very nice hotel. I'd recommend that one. It looks like a really good one, actually. It's gotten very good reviews, and it's very historical because Brian Boru's last stand against the Vikings was fought there. King Brian Boru was the first and only king to really unite Ireland and Irish history. He was actually a descendant of the Tuatha De Danann, who lived in the south and in the Okanagan areas in the southwest. And he actually was able to unite the entire island and drive out the Vikings for a period of time. But unfortunately, he died during the last battle to unite Ireland, and soon thereafter, Ireland fell into chaos again. Seems to be their destiny. But that area is extremely interesting for a number of reasons. Ancient history, Patrick's came by near there. Mm-hmm. Of course, more recently, there's a Bram Stoker who's associated with the area. Jim Fitzpatrick, the guy who did a lot of those wonderful illustrations, he's well known for his Celtic illustrations, also lives in that area, even though I wouldn't tell you where he lived. He's a very popular part of London, or of Dublin. It's the northern area. The Lusk Church in that region is actually one of the first churches in Ireland. The Cave of Durwood and Grania, very popular Irish folklore, and some very good dolmens and standing stones to visit in that region as well.
Do you know of any don't-dos in Ireland?
Well, let's see. Don't-dos in Ireland, I wouldn't
take anybody's beer.
I wouldn't wear orange in certain areas. I wouldn't wear green in certain areas in the north, but particularly in downtown. What's the name? What's the name of that? In this parts of the north, it could be dangerous. But when Ian went there, he actually had a very good time. Even some of the more quote-unquote dangerous areas, people are still very friendly. And one time when his van broke down during his trip, one guy actually fixed it for free. He was amazed by that. The Irish people are very friendly and accommodating. They just like to have a good conversation a lot of the time. good conversation over a pint is worth money to them, I think. Worth more than money.
Well,
I think a good conversation is worth more than money, in my opinion.
that is so true. That is so true. Doug, what has been the greatest point of satisfaction for you and the rest of your staff in putting together your travel guides?
I think I've always been a lover of books. I'm a terrific bibliophile. I've spent way too much on books. I have most of a bookcase filled with books in Ireland that I'd use for research. Just reading about Ireland, I just found fascinating while listening to Irish music. It's a wonderful experience. It's like, I guess, just like fine wine. It's a refined taste, but once you get into it, there's nothing you can't beat it except for maybe an actual trip to Ireland. And reading about Irish history and mythology was just one of the more wonderful experiences of my life. And writing a book about it was a tremendously satisfying experience, definitely.
Are you going to be doing any other books on any other parts of Europe?
Well, Ian actually went to New Zealand afterwards, but we haven't had a chance to do a book on that yet. That's probably our next travel guide.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty popular area. Probably a much smaller book, so it'll be cheaper to do. New Zealand's a much smaller country, but it's a pretty popular place to go. It's been consistently rated one of the best places to go by various travel organizations for years now. And, of course, the Lord of the Rings is filmed there, so
that's right, yeah.
Increases popularity. If we wish we'd be able to publish it a few years back, the Lord of the Rings mania has died down a bit. But it's still a great place to go, and you can see many of the spots that they filmed pretty much the entire film. It's a beautiful country.
Doug, we've got to take a commercial break. Stand by. Doug Elwell is our special guest. The website is ireland.mysteriousworld.com. That's ireland.mysteriousworld.com. My name's Rob McConnell, and Doug Elwell and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, on Talkstar.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Oh, yeah. Many a nights in Montreal at the Cock and Bull, and then at Flanagan's, and then we'd go to Finnegan's. It was great being Irish every Friday night. Doug Elwell's our special guest. The website is www.ireland.mysteriousworld.com. Doug, what is the best time of year to go to Ireland for the best weather?
Best weather is the height of summer because most of the year it's cold and rainy. There's a period between, let's say, like you might expect, between June 15 and August 15 where it's the warmest. But if you go off-season during the late spring or early fall, you'll avoid most of the crowds.
And that's always a good idea.
Yeah, there's quite crowded during peak season.
And I would imagine now on the off-season, the traveler would also save some money.
Off-season is always cheaper. Wintertime, if you can stand it, probably the best time. There are things you can see in the wintertime that you can't see during the summer. For example, the Festival of the Wren and the Boxing Day, which they celebrate over there. The Festival of the Wren, they actually, in some areas of the country, still have the Wren boys who go around singing about the tale of the Wren. It's just kind of a druidic custom that held over from ancient times. It's a lot of fun. Basically, where the Wren boys go around asking for money to bury the Wren, which had died. It's just kind of a funny little folklore. And there are things that go on throughout the year, festivals. We have an entire huge listing of festivals that go around year-round. Sometimes, if you go during the summer, you'll miss out some of the better festivals. So, for example, the St. Patrick's Day Festival, which is gigantic. It's March 17th. So year-round is always tough to do, and of course it would be cheaper if you went in off-peak season.
Do you have any advice for travelers who are thinking about going to Ireland?
I would say now's a pretty good time because, generally speaking, one of the reasons we chose Ireland is because our theory is that the non-Western cultures are going to become more and more dangerous to visit, and that's been true, increasingly true. For example, Mexico, they're having travelers advisories there now because of the problems down there.
Mm-hmm.
You would have never thought of that 10 or even 5 years ago, but now
That's so true, yeah.
Ill-advised. But Ireland's not going to be a problem anytime soon, as is most of Western Europe and Northern Europe. So for that reason alone, Ireland's a great place to go. Like I said before, the people are very friendly. The euro has gone down in value compared to the dollar and the Canadian dollar, I believe, in recent years. Not a lot more, but it's definitely cheaper than it was. It was 2 to 1, almost 2 to 1 when we wrote the book back in late 2006. So it's cheaper now to go. Also, people aren't going as often, so you can probably get better rates because people are cutting back on their vacationing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get better rates, better hotel rates, better food, everything's going to be cheaper.
How are the airfares going over to Ireland? Are they?
I haven't checked the
No.
airfares, but I suspect everything is cheaper.
Doug, I want to take this opportunity, my friend, of thanking you very much for joining us tonight, and to you and yours, a very happy St. Patrick's Day.
You too, Rob.
Take care, Doug. Look forward to talking to you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Doug Elwell, www.ireland.mysteriousworld.com. When we come back from the news at the top of the hour at 6:30 minutes past, we'll be joined by Sue Allen. We're going to be talking to Sue about demonic possession, spirit release, and psychic attacks. That's coming up next on the X-Zone after this word from our sponsor and the news. That means I'll be back at 6:30 minutes past the hour. And if you'd like to give us a call and say hi to Sue, 1-877-528-8255. That's toll free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii at 1-877-528-8255. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.